Robin, the journey from sidekick to hero is paved with...
Save the cliches, Batman. We've paid our dues. We want a real mission.
Nightwing, one of the most popular examples of character evolution and a classic character growing into a new persona. Dick Grayson's move from Robin to Nightwing sticks the landing in a way that has not often been replicated. And while arguments could be made as to whether or not the character has come to be stuck in a rut, this over time, he has firmly established himself as Nightwing, and is an extremely popular character in his own right as his evolved form. Sounds like we're talking about Pokemon. He got the Disco Stone evolved. Since this is such a pivotal moment for Dick Grayson as a character, it's always interesting to see how it's handled in adaptation, and I guess also in reboots. Different series have handled this different ways. Some having explanatory episodes or story arcs, others skipping it entirely, starting at a later point in Batman lore, or alternatively keeping the story in an earlier time period. But there's one adaptation that gives us not only the rarity of the Disco Wing outfit, yes, the OG Nightwing costume, but also one of the more annoying depictions of this evolution. And it comes to us from Batman the Brave and the Bold, the episode Sidekicks Assemble. A fun episode playing on the origin of the Teen Titans that stumbles a little at the end. I'm Sasha, this is Casually Comics, and this series is always a good time to talk about. So we're gonna take a look at Sidekicks Assemble. What works, what doesn't, some references, just good times, good vibes. We're gonna have some Silver Age, some Bronze Age, some Modern Age, just all the ages. But first, last time we talked about the series time of recording, it was about the episode Emperor Joker. And there were some cool references I forgot to highlight / miss, so let's go through them. The scene where Ten-Eyed Man catches a cactus is a reference to Man-Bat number 2. It was an issue from 1975. It was issue 2 of 2, by the way. That series didn't last long. In that issue, Man-Bat throws a potted plant at Ten-Eyed Man, and he catches it, which temporarily blinds him, since his fingertips are his eyes. It's actually less painful in the comic than in the episode, where since it's a cactus, you can assume that the prickles pierced his fingers or his eyes. I think he might be blind. It's very dark. You can get away with so much, you just throw a coat of whimsy on top. Next up, in the teaser, where multiple stories were pulled from for the Rainbow Batman versus the Rainbow Monster, we can add a third rainbow reference. For Firefly, the villain used in this segment, utilized a rainbow belt weapon in Outsiders 16 in 1987, in the story called The Firefly's Blaze of Glory. So this episode actually took 3 different rainbow stories and fused them all together, taking it from a double rainbow to a triple rainbow. That's some deep lore and pretty awesome. Color me impressed. Special shout out to the fan who pointed this out, and also because that issue is dark. Looker does some things, just the entire thing was a journey. Mindwipe City. Less Stark, the opening to Sidekicks Assemble. This episode was the 6th episode of the 2nd season of Batman the Brave and the Bold. It was written by Marsha F. Griffin and directed by Michael Chang. It originally aired in 2010. This episode is one where the teaser is tied into the main episode. In that, we get a short glimpse of the past that will then play into our present for the episode. This episode also continues the theme of Robin looking to become his own hero. This was already highlighted in season 1's The Color of Revenge, an episode we already discussed. So if you missed it, of course, link below. Our teaser gives us young Robin, Aqualad, and Speedy. They're longing to do more and be included on adult missions.
You're not the boss of me. Why don't you stay put and I'll move in closer? Forget it, Waterboy.
There's just one problem. They're not very mature as of yet. They're indeed very young. So Batman throws them in the totally not danger room to have them try to sort out their issues by working together. This opening fight is full of fun visual references to Silver Age villains, and even villains who still appear are given their first looks, like Mr. Freeze is in his Mr. Zero costume, because that's how he debuted in Batman 121. Rockin' that purple and green. The choice of these 3 sidekicks together is significant, because it's almost the same sidekicks who form the basis of the Teen Titans. The one difference is that Speedy is here, whereas in the first comic book story it was Kid Flash, which was the team up from Brave and the Bold 54 from 1964, which is considered historically to be the first Teen Titans appearance, even though they don't call themselves that. The appearance where they are introduced as the Teen Titans is Brave and the Bold 60 from 1965, and it's the same lineup as the first appearance, but this time they had a female character in Wonder Girl. This is the issue that would ensure Wonder Girl became a separate character from Diana, because over in her Wonder Woman books, Wonder Girl was just a younger version of Diana, and at the start they were appearing together in edited together footage, and then they just stopped explaining it and they were just coexisting. This is why editors and writers have to care about canon, because if you don't, things like this happen. We had Robert Kanigher over in Wonder Woman, who was writing and editing it, who was playing very fast and loose with continuity, and then you had Bob Haney over on the Brave and the Bold books and other titles, and he just did not care about canon, because he had a whole it's for kids mentality, and so felt it didn't matter because it was disposable entertainment. It doesn't have to make sense, they're 12. He has a quote about them being 12. In an interview for the Comics Journal, he stated when talking about writing in the 60s, "This is still the early 60s. The average reader was a 12-year-old boy living in Dayton, Ohio. Laughs. Haha. Who was not that sophisticated. So a lot of my stuff I wrote in the 60s was aimed at him. In those days, they were kids' junk. Kids' poison. Adults have their junk, whether it's booze or sex or whatever. Kids needed junk, and the junk was comics for years. That's why it saw at the level that it did. Comics the same as booze or sex, you heard it here first. Combine those two things and you get characters created by accident. But it's a happy accident. Yay, Donna Troy. That was a mess that took years to untangle though. They still reference it. They did it recently, time of recording in 2023, in Tales of the Teen Titans by Steve Orlando. It was issue number 3. Now, as for Speedy, who features in our episode, he would first appear in the Teen Titans number 4. This in 1966. And in issue 19, he would replace Aqualad and become a full-time member. For this show, it makes sense to use Speedy because Batman teams up way more with Green Arrow. He doesn't really team up with the Flash because in the present continuity of this show, the Flash is dead. And this lineup still honors the history of the team, so it all works out. Teaser done, we get onto our main plot, which is a Ra's al Ghul plot. In the first team-up story in the comics, the team fought a villain called Mr. Twister, which sounds way more intimidating than it was. But some of the core themes of that issue are brought to this episode. Namely, man, adults just don't understand. They're such squares and they don't give kids enough credit. Because despite it being years, all the mentors are treating their sidekicks like kids, and Robin in particular is just done.
What are you doing here?
Kicking butt. What does it look like?
Both teams are investigating the same thing. It's the adults' arrival which messes the sidekicks' takedown of Ra's League of Assassins, but them showing up ruined the adults' sting. So Batman pulls them all aside to the Hall of Justice so that they can coordinate.
Ra's al Ghul is planning another assault using an environmental weapon.
The meeting quickly devolves into the complicated mess that is the relationship between hero and sidekick, but specifically between Batman and Robin. As Robin is convinced Batman is trying to trick them when he gives them a choice between 2 islands to check out by making one sound more appealing than the other, to lure him off the scent of where the real action is.
Well, I've got news for you, Bats. I'm not falling for your little bait and switch.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
The best thing about this is that he's right, and it only backfires because in a rare instance Batman is wrong about which island they were supposed to go to. He doesn't properly track Ra's movements. He falls for his trap.
I think I shall call this adventure The Time Batman Sent Us to the Wrong Island.
There are a decent amount of tongue-in-cheek references to how the sidekicks were treated back in the day, because some of it was questionable. You get some particularly pointed moments between Green Arrow and Speedy, which hit very hard if you're aware of the direction that Speedy's story took in the comics. My ward, a junkie? It's 100% because of things like this.
Quick, retrieve my bow from that crocodile pit.
Robin and the boys are thrilled that they have the cool mission on the right island, but this episode then brings in an awkward element and it won't let it go. And that is flirting and a tiny bit of sexual tension between Robin and Talia.
Hello, Talia. I see you're still as evil as your power-mad father. Can we stop flirting and just fight?
No thank you. We don't want any. Now, Batman and Talia as a thing, that's just comic book history. It's been going on since she was introduced in the 1970s. As has the idea of her father trying to pair her off with Batman, whom he views as a worthy heir. This is in keeping with Ra's kind of old world views and sexism. That's just baked into his character. He also just has a callous disregard for people in general. So in this episode, when he's casting Talia aside for male heirs, that tracks.
My daughter is a capable warrior. Unfortunately, a sharp tongue and a strong will are no substitute for a male heir.
Trying to recruit Robin as the potential new heir, less so.
If you want to live, follow me.
She's so into me.
Why? This is Talia sleeping with resurrected Jason Todd all over again. No, I'll never forget. I don't care that there's been crises and reboots. It's in my brain. And this episode leans into it, so it won't let it go.
Brutal. Cheapers. I'll say. Can we just get moving?
Now, as for the episode, of course, it's up to our trio to investigate and to prove themselves and succeed in this mission against Ra's while the adults struggle to free themselves and get to them. The episode maintains a strong balance in the intercutting and has a good pace and rising action with the floating island that's going to go and deliver some carnivorous plants, because Ra's was going for a poison ivy type plot this time. They should have teamed up. The island here looks a decent amount like Infinity Island, which was introduced in the 80s in Batman 332 in 1981. There was a Lazarus pit in the center. It got destroyed. There have also been a couple of other versions of it. Young Justice also made use of it, just as that series also paid homage to the 60s Teen Titans lineup in its premiere episode, but it went in a different direction with it, because it also ended up incorporating a lot of elements of, well, the aforementioned Young Justice into it as well. As for Sidekicks Assemble, it has a satisfying climax where you see the team come together and work to each other's strengths. But the legacy nature is maintained by having Batman have the final confrontation with Ra's, while Robin and the other sidekicks handle the disarmament, and they also deal with Ubu inside, so it still feels like they handled the core part of the climax, and you get a cool Batman moment since the Batman-Ra's rivalry is so significant. Now at the end of all this, even though happy endings, there's still some resentment present between the older heroes and their younger sidekicks. This about not being taken seriously, even though the adults are impressed. But then Robin comes in, and he is Robin no longer, for he is Disco Wing. He's busted out the Disco Wing suit. In the comics, this occurred in Tales of the Teen Titans number 44 in 1984. And the pre-crisis changeover isn't as fraught as it would be just a little bit later, post-crisis. It did stem from Dick wanting to move on and out of Batman's shadow. He wanted to forge his own identity, and it was a big step for him, and it was treated as such. And a large part of that was dedicated to him picking his own name and the significance behind that. He chose a persona that combined his two key mentors, Batman and Superman. The costume is meant to be inspired by Batman, but the name Nightwing is from Superman in honor of his Kryptonian heritage. What he's referencing there is the hero Nightwing, who was at first a hero from the Ball City of Kandor, even though before that it was Superman, and another Kryptonian from Kandor took it over. It was the Silver Age. It was a time. And it's just really sweet that Dick wants to honor both Superman and Batman that way. That he wants this to be something that brings together all the elements of his character and all the people who have shaped him. The whole scene is really moving. Don't let the Disco Wing suit fool you. I've run through 100 names. Nothing seemed to fit. Each one sounds so strange to my ear. But there's one I kept coming back to, and a costume design I couldn't get out of my head. What's strange is both name and costume are based on other people, both mentors and friends. The Batman taught me, guided me, trained me. What I am, I owe to him. What more can I say? And Superman, I grew up in your shadow too. You taught me honor, selflessness, and the true meaning of the word hero. A long time ago, you used the name I've been thinking of. It was a name from your Kryptonian heritage. In the sum of so many people have influenced me, shaped my thinking, and given me love. Mom and Dad, you were the first. What you gave me will never leave. It's forever locked in my heart and in my soul. Batman, you took in a young, frightened boy, and you showed him how to become a good man. Corey, it's so funny. I spent the better part of last year fighting to forget what made me me. I almost alienated everyone, but you stuck by me, and I love you for that. I gave up being Robin because that tied me to Batman. But now, I become someone new who commemorates all those who made me someone special. It's so nice and so genuinely moving. And he comes out and reveals himself to the team. And the layout of the reveal and how he enters the room is similar in Sidekicks Assemble. It's reminiscent in the framing. What's very different is the tone. There's anger in this transition, which aligns with how the relationship has been shown in this series and also how it has been shown in some of the other comics. In this series specifically, Dick is very tired of how he's been treated, despite the fact that he's proved his competency. So his I'm doing this, deal with it attitude is in line with the series portrayal. What's a bit annoying is how they handle the name.
I make my own decisions. Call my own shots. And my new name is...
Nightwing.
Hey! Actually, that's not bad.
This really doesn't land. It's frustrating. And undercuts not just a classic comic moment, because not everyone is going to know about that, at least in terms of the audience. But the thing is, it also undercuts the very thesis of the episode and Robin's arc, which was coming into his own, making his own decisions and being respected by Batman. Batman just takes this key moment away from him, so the series can have a Batman knows best joke. And in this case, it's misplaced. It's also noteworthy because this series normally balances their comedic moments, but their harder or more emotional moments so well. And all the bones are there in this scene. The scene could have played out relatively the same and had more impact if, for example, Dick is surprised because Batman already knew that Dick had picked the name Nightwing. And it could have been a throwback to earlier in the episode where it was shown that they both know how the other thinks, only flipping it away from them manipulating each other to something sweet, to highlight that there are both positives and negatives to their relationship. Batman would still have stolen his moment a little bit, but it would still have given Dick agency while also acknowledging the type of dynamic they've set up for them in this series, which is that Batman's overstepping a little bit. However, the way it actually plays out just reinforces Batman is still controlling his life and viewing him as a kid, even if Dick likes the name. It undermines the themes of the episode. It's a little thing, but as mentioned, it stands out in a show that usually handles balancing these moments better, with more poise. It's just not the strongest moment given the episode's underlying message. Still, on a plus, Disco Wing lives, and it's presented legitimately, not as a joke. And you know what? That's nice. Yes, it has a huge collar, but it's not that bad. Dick fares better than the other sidekicks, I guess.
Guess I've been a little out of line.
Ah, jeepers, Arrow. You haven't been out of line. You've been a jerk.
Everyone needs therapy, especially Speedy. On the whole, this is a fun episode, and it's always nice to see a Nightwing origin. The paralleling between the adult heroes and the sidekicks is very well done, and the action is well paced and fun. It just trips a bit in the reveal, although I can see some finding it cute, despite how obnoxious Batman is being. Come on, Bruce, I was rooting for you. We were all rooting for you. But of course, those are just my thoughts, and I want to hear yours. Do you disagree entirely? Do you think this series handled it perfectly for what it was trying to accomplish? Are there references I missed or didn't mention that you feel need to be highlighted? You know I want to hear about those. Put them down below, because sharing is caring. Do you have another episode you want to take a look at? Your thoughts? Put them down there, and while you're at it, please do all the YouTube things. Like, share, subscribe, hit that bell notification so that you never miss a vid. Thanks so much for taking this time out of your day spent discussing comics with me. I always appreciate it, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.